They say all roads lead to Rome, but no one warns you that you won't want to leave once you're there. Rome is a living museum, 3,000 years old. Years of history. Welcome to the Eternal Thea. Welcome to our video. Discover Rome. Today, we're traveling to where our civilization began. We're in Rome, a city you don't just visit, you experience it with all 5 senses. You've probably seen 1,000 photos of the Colosseum or the Trevi Fountain, but Rome is so much more than that. It's the sound of Vespas weaving through traffic on cobblestone streets worn down by centuries. It's the smell of freshly brewed coffee coming from a corner cafe. It's the feeling of touching marble that was sculpted before the world became what we know today. Rome has an energy I haven't found in any other capital we visited. Rome is a glorious chaos. It's a city that challenges you at every turn, that forces you to put the map away and trust your instincts. Here, the past isn't locked away in glass display cases. The past is the wall where someone leans their bike, or the fountain where a child drinks fresh water. In this video, we're not just going to give you a list of monuments you can find in any quick guide. We want you to understand the soul of the Eternal City. We're going to dive into its history so you really know what you're looking at when you walk through the Roman Forum. We're going to break the city down by districts so you can find the neighborhood that fits you best. From Trastevere, the more bohemian area, to Monte, which is more hipster and avant-garde. We'll dedicate special time to gastronomy, because in Rome, eating is a sacred ritual. I'll show you how to tell real artisanal gelato from the industrial kind, and I'll explain why carbonara pasta is something that will change your life forever. Plus, I'll give you practical tips that you only learn by making mistakes. How to get around without losing your mind, how to avoid tourist traps, and how to enjoy the city without spending a fortune. Rome is huge, it's ancient, and it can be overwhelming if you don't come prepared. But don't worry, that's what we're here for. Get ready for total immersion in history, art, and Italian life. We're about to discover why, after 2 millennia, Rome is still and will always be the center of the world. Let's get started. To really enjoy Rome, you first have to understand its urban geology. I often say that Rome isn't a flat city, but a city of layers. Beneath the street you're walking on today, there's a city from the 19th century. Underneath that, there's one from the Renaissance. And at the very bottom, the foundations of the empire that changed the course of humanity. This layering is what gives Rome its unique character. It's a place where a 2,000-year-old temple can now be the wall of a modern cafe, or the basement of a luxury hotel. Rome is the capital of Italy, but it's also the capital of an invisible and spiritual empire, since it holds the Vatican City at its heart. This duality creates a fascinating contrast. You'll see priests and nuns from all over the world crossing paths with young people on Vespas dressed in the latest fashion. It's a city where the sacred and the profane have coexisted in perfect tension for centuries. Rome's a noisy city, sometimes chaotic, and for some it might seem messy, but that's where its magic lies. Here, traffic is like an impossible choreography, and the city squares are the living rooms of Roman homes. You need to know about the concept of la dolce vita. It's the philosophy of not being in a hurry. Romans don't rush to drink their coffee, they enjoy it standing at the bar while chatting with the barista. They don't finish dinner in 15 minutes, they turn a meal into an event that lasts for hours. At the end of these moments, you'll understand that, in Rome, the past isn't dead. It's simply resting beneath your feet, waiting for you to pause for a moment so it can tell you its story. To understand Rome is ultimately to learn to love its imperfection, because it's precisely that imperfection that has kept it eternal for almost 3,000 years. Rome isn't just one city, but a collection of small towns, each with its own personality. So you don't get lost in this vastness, let's divide the capital into 5 main areas. Understanding where you are is the key to enjoying the city without feeling like just another passing tourist. We'll start in the historic center, the heart that beats the strongest. This is the scene we all picture when we think of Italy. It's the area between Piazza Navona, the Pantheon, and the Trevi Fountain. Here, the streets are so narrow that barely any sunlight gets through, suddenly opening up into monumental squares with marble fountains that take your breath away. The facades range from ochre to terracotta to sienna yellow, creating a palette of colors that shifts depending on the position of the sun. However, a friendly tip, even though it's the most photogenic spot, it's also the most crowded. To really enjoy the historic center, you have to get up early. Seeing Piazza Navona empty at 6 in the morning, hearing only the water from Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers is an almost religious experience. Don't just stick to the main streets. Dare to wander into side alleys like Via del Governo Vecchio, where you'll find antique shops and cafes that look frozen in the 1950s. Here, luxury lives side by side with history. You'll see the most exclusive boutiques housed in 16th century palaces with coats of arms on their doorways. Now we cross the Tiber River, leaving behind the Baroque grandeur to enter my favorite neighborhood, Trastevere. Trastevere is the people's Rome, the true, authentic Rome. Its name literally means across the Tiber, and for centuries it was a neighborhood isolated from the rest of the city by the river, which allowed it to preserve a medieval character and a very strong, unique identity. The labyrinth of cobblestones, the famous San Pietrini, walls covered in ivy and bougainvillea, and laundry strung from balcony to balcony, which seems to be part of the decor. During the day, it's a quiet and idyllic place, perfect for sitting in the Piazza di Santa Maria in Trastevere and admiring the golden mosaics of its basilica while you sip a coffee. But when the sun goes down, Trastevere transforms. It's the epicenter of Roman social life. The squares fill with street musicians, the little trattorias set their tables out on the street, and the air is filled with the aroma of fresh pasta. It's a charming chaos, where the traveler finally feels like a part of the city. It's bohemian, it's noisy, and it's absolutely irresistible. Right next to the imposing Colosseum is the Namonti River. Interestingly, back in ancient Rome, this neighborhood was called the Suburra, and it was the most dangerous, dirtiest, and poorest area of the city. Julius Caesar was born here when the neighborhood was a nest of taverns and brothels. Today, history has done a complete 180, and Monti is the coolest and most cutting-edge district in the capital. Monti is the neighborhood of artisans, vintage secondhand clothing shops, independent bookstores, and contemporary art galleries. What makes it special is that there are no big avenues, just small ups and downs flanked by old buildings. Its nerve center, it's the Piazza della Madonna dei Monti, where locals, artists, and travelers mingle on the steps of the fountain to share a beer or an ice cream at sunset. If you're looking for a younger Rome, less packaged for mass tourism and with a hipster vibe, but still very stylish, Monti's your place. Plus, it has a secret. From its streets, like Via Vacina, you get some of the best views of the Colosseum, framed by brick facades and climbing plants. If we head north, skirting around Vatican City, we enter Prati. This neighborhood is a visual contrast to the rest. Here, there are no twisting medieval streets. There are wide avenues, circular plazas, and a grid layout that feels more like the orderliness of Paris. Prati is the neighborhood of the Roman bourgeoisie and high-end shopping. If you want to get away from the crowds on Via del Corso, come here. Via Cola di Rienzo has all the international brands, but with a much more sophisticated and local vibe. It's an excellent area to stay in if you value quiet nights and cleanliness, but still want to be close to the center, since it's perfectly connected by the metro. Plus, Prati has become a culinary hotspot, moving away from tourist menus to offer signature cuisine, designer cocktail bars, and specialty coffee shops. Finally, we head south to visit Testaccio. This is the neighborhood where the heart of the real Rome beats. Historically, this was the industrial neighborhood, the site of the old slaughterhouse, and that forever defined the city's identity. It was here that Roman cuisine was born, humble yet now famous worldwide, using the less desirable cuts of meat to create masterpieces. Testaccio is organized around a curious artificial hill, Monte de Cochi. made entirely from the remains of millions of Roman olive oil amphorae that arrived through the port. Visiting its food market, the new Mercato di Testaccio, is a must-do experience. There, you can eat freshly made pasta while watching locals passionately argue about the latest soccer match. In Testaccio, if a restaurant is packed, it's because the food is excellent and the prices are fair. It's the place where soccer, politics, and food are the only valid topics of conversation. If you're looking for the essence of the working-class Roman, their joy and their frankness, Testaccio is the perfect ending to our neighborhood tour. Rome is probably the only city in the world where reality surpasses the photographs. Let's break down those places that have defined the history of architecture and that, no matter how many times you've seen them in movies, will take your breath away when you see them in person. There's no other way to start than with the Flavian Amphitheater, better known as the Colosseum. Almost 2,000 years old, this structure remains the ultimate symbol of Rome's power. When you stand in front of it, the first thing that hits you is its scale. Can you imagine 50,000 people shouting in unison, the smell of wet sand, and the tension of the gladiators in the tunnels you can now see exposed? But here's a tip for your visit. Visit it. You can't really see the Colosseum from the outside. You have to go inside, and if you can, go up to the upper levels to truly understand Roman engineering. Look at the arches, the use of concrete and travertine marble. Here's a fact not many people know. In its heyday, the Colosseum was covered by a velarium, a system of giant awnings operated by sailors that protected the audience from the sun. It wasn't just a stadium, it was a perfect spectacle machine. Book your tickets at least a month in advance. If you don't, you'll miss out on one of humanity's greatest achievements. Right in the shadow of the Colosseum, we find the Arch of Constantine. It's the largest triumphal arch in Rome and has a fascinating history. It's a collage from antiquity. To build it in the year 315 AD, reliefs and statues from much older monuments dedicated to Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius were used. It symbolizes the moment when the Roman Empire began to change forever, celebrating the victory of Constantine, the emperor who legalized Christianity. It's the perfect place to stop and observe the evolution of Roman art before entering the Forum. Right next to the Colosseum, we find the Roman Forum. If the Colosseum was for leisure, the Forum was the brain. Here, the fate of entire nations was decided. Walking along the Via Sacra is literally stepping on the same stones that Julius Caesar, Cicero, or Augustus once walked on. It's a place that requires imagination because what we see are ruins. But if you pay attention to the columns of the Temple of Saturn or to the Curia Julia, where the Senate used to meet, you'll start to feel the weight of history. Climbing up to the Palatine Hill is essential. It's where, according to legend, Romulus founded the city and where the emperors built their palaces. The views from here toward the Forum and the Circus Maximus are the best in Rome. It's a place to stroll without rushing, far from the hustle and bustle of traffic, surrounded by stone pines and the echo of an empire that feels like it just left. We walk toward the center to come face to face with what, for many architects, is the most perfect building in the world, the Pantheon. It's the best preserved monument of ancient Rome, and the reason is that it was never out of use. What will leave you speechless is its dome. With a diameter of 43 meters, it is still the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. Yes, the Romans built something 2,000 years ago that we still can't replicate today with that kind of lightness. When you go inside, look up. The oculus, that hole open to the sky, is the only source of light. If you're lucky enough to be in Rome, on a rainy day, you'll witness the spectacle of water falling inside the temple and disappearing through the original drains in the marble floor. It's a place of silence and respect, where the remains of the genius Raphael and the kings of Italy also rest. From the sobriety of the Pantheon, we move on to the explosion of the Baroque. The Trevi Fountain isn't just a fountain, it's a theatrical facade, where the water seems to come alive among the sculptures of Oceanus and his Tritons. It's probably the most crowded spot in Rome, but there's a trick that never fails. Visit it at 3 or 4 in the morning. And don't forget the ritual. If you toss a coin with your right hand over your left shoulder, you'll return to Rome. It might sound like a cliche, but nearly 1.5 million euros are collected from its basin every year, and that money goes to charitable causes. It's a tribute we all gladly pay for the promise of coming back. We can't talk about Rome without mentioning that another country exists within it. The Vatican is an overwhelming concentration of art and faith. St. Peter's Square, designed by Bernini, welcomes you with its columns like two open arms embracing the world. Entering St. Peter's Basilica is an experience that makes you feel small. Michelangelo's Pieta, protected by glass, will move you with a delicacy that makes marble seem to turn into skin. But the real treasure lies in the Vatican museums. There are miles of galleries filled with the greatest masterpieces in history. And, of course, the end of the tour, the Sistine Chapel. Stepping into that space where absolute silence reigns, or at least is attempted, and looking up to see Michelangelo's Last Judgment is one of those moments that makes any trip worthwhile. Towering over Piazza Venezia stands a massive block of white marble that leaves no one indifferent, the Vittoriano. Dedicated to the first king of unified Italy, the Romans affectionately call it by nicknames. The typewriter or the wedding cake, because of its dazzling white color, which contrasts with the ochre tones of the rest of the city. Although it's a relatively young monument, completed in 1911, it's truly impressive. Here, you'll find the tomb of the unknown soldier, guarded by an eternal flame. The best thing about this place is the panoramic glass elevator. It will take you up to the highest terrace in the city, offering you one of the few views where you can see the Colosseum, the Forum, and the Vatican all in a single 360-degree glance. Walking along the Tiber, you'll come across a cylindrical building that looks like an impregnable fortress. This is Castel Sant'Angelo. It was originally built as a mausoleum for Emperor Hadrian, but over time it was transformed into a military fortress and a refuge for the popes during times of siege. The most iconic feature is the Bridge of Angels in front of it, flanked by 10 statues of angels designed by Bernini. There's a secret passageway, the Passetto di Borgo, that connects the castle directly to the Vatican. Climbing up to its upper terrace is a must. The view of St. Peter's Dome from here, especially at sunset, is one of the most romantic sights you'll take away from Rome. Now we enter what many consider the most beautiful square in the world, Piazza Navona. Its elongated shape is no coincidence. It was built over the ruins of the Stadium of Domitian, where athletic competitions were held in ancient times. Today, it is the quintessential Baroque hall. At its center shines Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers, a masterpiece where water springs from a rock topped by an Egyptian obelisk. The square is surrounded by cafes, street artists, and the impressive church of Sant'Agnese in Agone. It perfectly sums up that blend of historical grandeur and everyday life that only Rome has. To wrap up our tour of the icons, we climb the famous Spanish Steps. It's the ultimate meeting spot, a gathering place filled with flowers in the spring. And just at the top, we reach the Pincio, the entrance to Villa Borghese. This is Rome's Green Lung, a vast park full of fountains, statues, and neoclassical temples. It's where Romans go to unwind, to row on the little lake, or to visit the Borghese Gallery, which houses Bernini's marble sculptures that seem to have real movement. If Rome is a museum for the eyes, it's an absolute paradise for the palate. In this city, eating isn't just a biological need, it's an art form and an active identity. But be careful, Roman cuisine is honest, straightforward, and sometimes brutal. It's based on local ingredients, respect for tradition, and a golden rule you should engrave in your mind. Less is more. You can't say you've been to Rome if you haven't tried its 4 essential sauces. They all start from a common base: pecorino romano, a cured and salty sheep's cheese, and guanciale, cured pork jowl, which has nothing to do with bacon or pancetta. Grisha is the mother of them all. It only has guanciale, pecorino, and black pepper. Its simplicity elevated to perfection. Carbonara. Forget the cream or the onion. Authentic Roman carbonara is made only with egg yolks, pecorino cheese, pepper, and crispy guanciale. The secret lies in the creaminess achieved with the residual heat, never exposed to direct heat. The matrix. We add tomato to the base of the gricia. St. Risotto. It is intense, slightly spicy, and is usually served with bucatini. Those thick spaghetti with a hole in the center? Cacio e pepe. It seems easy, but it's the biggest challenge for a chef. Just cheese and pepper. The trick is to emulsify the cooking water with the pecorino until you create a silky cream that hugs the pasta. In Rome, pizza is experienced in two ways. During the day, you'll see pizza al taglio shops. Here, pizza is cooked in rectangular trays and sold by weight. It's the perfect street food. You order a piece of margherita or a fiori di zucca, zucchini flowers. They cut it with scissors and you eat it while walking. But at night comes the Roman tonda pizza. Unlike Neapolitan pizza, which is fluffy and thick, the Roman one is scrocchiarella, thin and crispy, and it has almost no crust. It's light, delicious, and perfect for a long dinner on a terrace in Trastevere. If you get hungry between meals, look for a supplì. It's the Roman version of a croquette, but better. A ball of boiled rice with tomato sauce and a melted mozzarella center that, when you open it, creates a string of cheese that looks like telephone wires. That's why they call it supplì al telephone. And for dessert, of course, gelato. But watch out for the tourist traps. If you see mountains of ice cream in bright blue Smurf colors, or neon green, rode away. Real artisanal gelato has muted colors. Pistachio gelato is brown, earthy, not bright green, and it's kept in metal containers with lids. To finish, coffee. In Rome, you order coffee at the counter, at the bar. It's a process that takes 30 seconds. You order, drink it in one go, and get on with your day. If you sit at a table in Piazza Navona, you'll pay 5 times more for the same coffee. Order an espresso, or if it's hot, a crema di cafe. And remember, after 11 in the morning, ordering a cappuccino is, for a Roman, a cardinal sin. Cappuccino is only for breakfast. Don't look for unnecessary luxuries. Look for the trattoria with checkered tablecloths, where the waiter serves you in a hurry but with a mischievous smile. That's where the true flavor of the Eternal City lies. Getting around Rome is possibly the biggest challenge for any traveler. Like I told you at the beginning, Rome is a city best enjoyed on foot. But let's be realistic. Your feet have their limits, and the city is huge. Let's decode the Roman transportation system so you don't waste time or lose your patience. The first thing you need to know is that the subway is limited. It only has 3 lines, A, B, and C. Why so few for a European capital? It's very simple. Every time they try to dig a new tunnel, they run into an imperial palace, a villa, or a Roman cemetery. The subway is great for connecting far-off places like the Vatican, the Spanish Steps, or Termini Station, but it won't help you get around the heart of the historic center. For areas where the subway doesn't reach, there are buses and trams. The bus system is huge, but it has a well-deserved reputation for being unpredictable. My advice is to download apps like Citymapper or even Google Maps itself. They work pretty well for figuring out which line to take. Here's a crucial tip. Tickets are not sold on board. You have to buy them ahead of time at tobacco shops marked with a big T, kiosks, or at the machines in the stations. If you want to have an authentic experience and you're brave enough, you can rent a Vespa or an electric scooter. Rome is full of sharing services, but be careful. Roman traffic is like a jungle with its own unwritten rules, and the cobblestones, the San Pietrini, it can get really slippery when it rains. Finally, if you're arriving or leaving by plane, there's this, the Leonardo Express, a direct train that connects Fiumicino Airport with Termini Station in just 32 minutes. It's the fastest and most convenient option. Avoid unofficial taxis. Always look for the white cars with a taxi meter and a fixed rate for the airports. Before you close your suitcase and head off to Italy, let me give you some golden tips that will make the difference between a stressful trip and a perfect experience. These are the details you only learn after you've walked Rome many times. First, let's talk about water. Rome is the city of fountains. You'll see small iron taps called Nasoni, big-nosed, everywhere. The water that comes out of them is public, free, super fresh, and of excellent quality. Don't waste money on plastic bottles. Buy a reusable one and refill it. It's a savings for your wallet and a break for the planet. Second, the dress code. Rome is a city full of churches, and many of them, including St. Peter's Basilica, are very strict. If you go in with bare shoulders or really short shorts, they won't let you in. Always carry a light scarf in your backpack so you can cover up when needed. It'll keep you from missing out on amazing places over something so small. How silly would that be? Third, reservations. The days of showing up at a monument and buying your ticket at the box office are long gone in Rome. If you want to see the Colosseum or the Vatican museums, you have to book online weeks in advance. If you miss out on official tickets, look for guided tours. They're a bit more expensive, but they guarantee you access and the historical explanation these places deserve. Fourth, safety. Rome isn't a dangerous city, but it is a city full of pickpockets. They're experts, especially on Metro Line A and in the most crowded areas. Keep your backpack in front of you in crowded places, and don't accept gifts from strangers on the street, like bracelets or flowers. Nothing is free, and these are usually tactics to aggressively ask you for money. And finally, the schedule. Museums and monuments close relatively early, but the city comes alive at night. Don't lock yourself away in your hotel too early. Strolling through Rome when it's lit up is like discovering a completely different city, more intimate and, if possible, even more eternal. We've reached the end of our journey through the Eternal City. We've walked in the footsteps of emperors, gotten lost in the ivy-covered alleys of Trastevere, and savored the essence of a cuisine that has conquered the world. But the truth is, Rome never really ends. You could live here for 100 lifetimes, and every morning you'd find a new inscription on a stone, a forgotten statue, or a hidden courtyard that would take your breath away. Rome teaches us that time is relative, that greatness can coexist with chaos, and that the purest beauty is often found in imperfection. If this video has helped you plan your next adventure, or simply let you travel from your couch, give it a big like if you found the content helpful, and leave a comment telling us which of these neighborhoods stole your heart. We're reading your comments. Thank you for being here, thank you for traveling with us, and we'll see you very soon at the next destination. Have a great trip.